Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. And if you're watching this, it's probably because you or someone you know has navigated the complicated world of online dating. Or maybe you're just curious about the title of this video. And yes, it's all true. Every word. I've lived a pretty quiet life. I have a job I enjoy, a small circle of wonderful friends, a home I've worked hard for. But for a long time, there was a piece missing. I was lonely. Deeply lonely. I'm in my late 40s, and the dating pool, well, it felt more like a puddle. After years of my friends nudging me, I finally caved. I downloaded a dating app. It was a strange new world. I spent hours just scrolling. Creating a profile felt like writing a resume for a job I wasn't sure I wanted. Loves long walks, quiet nights in, and has a good sense of humor. It all felt so cliché. The men on there, it was a mixed bag, to put it lightly. There were the guys who were clearly only after one thing, their photos all shirtless bathroom selfies. There were men who looked kind, but there was no spark. And then there were the ones who seemed, well, too good to be true. Men who looked like they belonged on the cover of a magazine, with bios talking about their yachts and private jets. I felt out of my league. I was an observer for days, maybe even a week. A digital wallflower. I didn't have the courage to make the first move. I'd like a profile here and there, but I never sent a message. I was starting to think this just wasn't for me, that I was destined to be the cool aunt who travels a lot. And then, one Tuesday evening, a notification popped up. My heart did a little flutter. It was silly, but it did. The name was Daniel. Before I even read his message, I clicked on his profile. And I remember my breath catching in my throat. He was perfect. Not model perfect, but real perfect. He had kind eyes, with little crinkles at the corners that suggested he laughed a lot. He looked strong, responsible. His bio was simple. It said he was an engineer, currently working offshore on an oil rig. A widower with one daughter in college. He loved classic rock and was looking for a genuine connection. I finally opened his message. It wasn't a generic hey or a creepy pickup line. It was thoughtful. He mentioned something from my profile, a book I'd listed as my favorite, and said he loved it too. So, I responded. And that was the beginning of everything. We started talking and it was effortless. We texted from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. He was an early riser because of his work schedule, so I'd wake up to these long, beautiful messages about his night shift, about the stars over the ocean. He was charming, funny, and incredibly intelligent. He asked about my day, my work, my friends. He remembered the little things, like my colleague's name or the project I was stressed about. He made me feel seen. He told me he was out of town on the rig for a 3-month rotation, but he'd be back in about 2 months. He couldn't wait to meet me in person. He sent me pictures all the time. Selfies of his tired but smiling face after a long shift, short videos of the helicopter landing on the helipad, the vast, endless blue of the ocean. It all felt so real, so authentic. We graduated from texts to voice calls. His voice, it was deep and reassuring. It had a slight, unplaceable accent that he said came from moving around a lot as a kid. We'd talk for hours. I'd be cooking dinner with my phone propped up on the counter, just listening to him talk about his day, about the mechanics of the rig, about his dreams for the future when he finally retired. He said he wanted to open a small bookshop cafe. He painted this beautiful picture of our future, and I, a woman who hadn't let herself dream like that in 20 years, started painting right alongside him. We even had a few FaceTimes. They were always short, and the connection was choppy. He'd apologize profusely, blaming the terrible satellite internet on the rig. He'd say, "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I just want to see your beautiful face properly. Soon, I promise." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was showing me his workplace. I could hear the industrial sounds in the background. I was falling, and I was falling hard. For the first time in forever, I felt a sense of hope, of excitement. I was in love. I told my friends about him. I showed them his pictures. They were so happy for me. We were all planning what I'd wear on our first date. We had a routine. A good morning text. A good night call. Every single day, like clockwork. Then one Wednesday, silence. No good morning text. I told myself not to be neurotic. He's on an oil rig, things happen. But as the day wore on, a knot of anxiety started to twist in my stomach. I sent a message. "Hey, everything okay?" "Thinking of you." No reply. Thursday came. Nothing. My calls went straight to voicemail. My mind went to the darkest places. Had there been an accident on the rig? Had he fallen ill? I was frantic. I tried Googling the name of his company, looking for news reports of any incidents. Nothing. I felt completely helpless. I barely slept. I was sick with worry. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone rang. It was him. The relief that washed over me was so intense it made me dizzy. I snatched the phone. Daniel! Oh my God, are you okay? I was so worried. His voice was strained, full of exhaustion and panic. He apologized again and again. He said a critical piece of equipment had failed, and he was part of a small emergency team that had to go out on a vessel to a subsea installation. He said it was a remote area, a dead zone for communication. He tried to call me before they left, but the signal cut out as he was dialing. And then his voice broke. He told me the most disturbing news. Just before he lost contact, he'd spoken to his daughter. She had collapsed. She was in the hospital. The doctors found a rare, aggressive infection near her heart, and she needed emergency surgery. A very, very expensive surgery. He said he'd told her to use his emergency savings, to go to his bank and withdraw the money. But because of the amount, the bank required his physical presence or a complex verification process he couldn't complete from the middle of the ocean. He was trapped. He sounded utterly broken. He was sobbing on the phone, saying his little girl was going to die and he couldn't do anything to help her. My heart shattered for him. All my previous worry was now channeled into this new crisis. I was thinking, this poor man. He's working so hard, all alone, and now his child is sick. He cried for a bit, and I tried my best to comfort him, telling him it would be okay, that they'd find a way. Then he went quiet for a moment before saying, "Wait, Sarah, you're there. You're in town." My blood ran cold. I think a small, rational part of my brain screamed no, but it was drowned out by the overwhelming sound of my heart, by the voice of the man I loved. He said, "I don't know how to ask this. This is the most embarrassing moment of my life. But my daughter, she needs $15,000 for the surgery deposit. They won't operate without it. Is there any possible way you could lend it to me? I'll pay you back the second. I'm back on shore. I swear on my life. I'll give you $18,000 for your trouble. Please, Sarah. You're my only hope." What would you do? The man you've spent the last month falling in love with, the man who you believe is your future, is sobbing on the phone, begging you to save his child's life. Every romantic movie, every fairy tale tells you to help. To be the hero. I didn't even hesitate. "Of course," I said. "Don't worry about the extra money, Daniel." "That's ridiculous. Just tell me what to do. I'll send it." The relief in his voice was palpable. He thanked me over and over, calling me his angel, his savior. He sent me the details, an account number and a name. He said it was the hospital's International Payment Coordinator's account to expedite the process. It all sounded so plausible. The next morning, I went to my bank. I walked in, filled out the withdrawal slip for $15,000 from my personal savings, money I had been carefully putting aside for years for a down payment on a small retirement cottage. I remember the teller giving me a slightly concerned look, but I just smiled, feeling a sense of purpose. I was saving a life. I was helping the man I loved. I transferred the money. I sent him a screenshot of the receipt. He replied almost instantly. His reply was, "Thank you, my angel. You have no idea what you've just done. You saved my daughter. I will love you forever for this." I felt like I was floating on air. I went to work feeling like a superhero. I couldn't wait to tell him the money had gone through and to ask for an update on his daughter. I sent him a message that afternoon. No reply. I figured he was busy with the crisis. I sent another one in the evening. Nothing. The next morning, I went to send my usual good morning text, and the message wouldn't send. It just said failed. I tried again. Failed. I checked his profile on the dating app. It was gone. User not found. A cold, heavy dread started to seep into my bones. I tried to call him. The number was no longer in service. I checked WhatsApp. I'd been blocked. His profile picture, that kind, smiling face, was gone, replaced by the generic gray avatar. Blocked. 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 Everywhere. It was like he had vanished. Evaporated. The digital person I had poured my heart and soul into for 2 months had ceased to exist. And my money, my $15,000, was gone with him. The next few days were a blur of shame, panic, and gut-wrenching heartbreak. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I'd just stare at my phone, at the blank space where his name used to be, and I would cry. I felt so stupid. So incredibly, profoundly stupid. I finally broke down at work. One of my closest colleagues, Maria, found me crying in the break room. I told her everything. The whole sordid story. I expected her to judge me, to tell me how foolish I'd been. But she just listened. And then she said something that changed everything. She said, "Let me see his picture." I pulled up one of the screenshots I had of his dating profile. She took my phone and, right there, she did a reverse image search on Google. My world tilted on its axis. The results came up instantly. The photos, they belonged to a real estate developer from Texas. His name wasn't Daniel. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't on an oil rig. His entire identity, the man I fell in love with, was a lie. Stolen. Maria put her arm around me as I just stared at the screen. It wasn't just the money. The money was devastating. It was my future. But the real pain, the thing that felt like a physical wound, was the betrayal. The love I felt was real. The connection I thought we had was real to me. And it had all been a game. A script. I was just a target. A number. He probably had a dozen other Sarahs he was talking to at the same time. The intimacy, the shared dreams, the sick daughter, it was all a meticulously crafted illusion designed to steal from a lonely woman. And I had walked right into it. The heartbreak was brutal. I thought that was the end of it. The ghost who scammed me had vanished. The nightmare was over, and now I just had to live with the consequences, with the shame and the loss. I was wrong. It was about to get so much worse. About a week later, I got a message from an unknown number on WhatsApp. My heart leaped, thinking for a split second it was him, coming to apologize, to explain. The message just said, "Hello, Sarah. Miss me?" And then a picture came through. It was a photo of me. A nude photo. But it wasn't me. It was my face, my head from one of the selfies I'd sent him, crudely photoshopped onto someone else's naked body. It was a doctored image, a deepfake. But it was good enough to be believable at first glance. Good enough to ruin me. My blood turned to ice. I couldn't breathe. Another message came through. "I see I have your attention. I know everything about you now, Sarah. I know where you work. I have the names of your family members from your social media. Your mother, your brother. How do you think they'd feel getting this picture? Or maybe your boss?" This couldn't be happening. The man who had charmed me, betrayed me, and stolen from me was now back to blackmail me. To violate me in a way that felt even more personal, more terrifying than taking my money. He wanted more. He demanded $10,000, this time in Bitcoin, a currency I knew nothing about. He said if he got the money, he would delete everything and disappear forever. He gave me 2 hours. 2 hours, or he would send that thing to everyone I loved. I was in a state of pure terror. My mind was racing. My reputation, my relationships with my family, my job, everything felt like it was on the verge of being destroyed by a monster hiding behind a screen thousands of miles away. My first instinct was just to comply, to make it stop. I grabbed my purse, my checkbook, ready to rush to the bank, to figure out how to buy this Bitcoin, to do whatever it took to make him go away. I ran to my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. I was halfway to the bank when something inside me snapped. I slammed on the brakes. I just sat there, in the middle of the road, with cars honking behind me. And I asked myself, if I pay him, will he really delete it? What's to stop him from coming back in a month and asking for another 10,000? Or 20? What's to stop him from sending the pictures anyway, just for fun? He had already proven he had no honor, no empathy, no soul. I was his puppet, and he would keep pulling my strings for as long as I let him. And in that moment, the fear, it didn't disappear. But it was suddenly eclipsed by something else. Rage. A white-hot, furious rage. He took my money. He broke my heart. And now he was trying to take my dignity. No, not again. I was done being a victim. I pulled over, my mind clearer than it had been in weeks. I pulled out my phone, but instead of opening my banking app, I opened Google. My fingers flew across the screen. I remembered typing furiously, how to handle online scammer, blackmail scammer help, track an online scammer. I scrolled past the generic advice articles until I found something different. A forum deep in the web dedicated to victims of these kinds of romance and blackmail scams. They weren't just offering sympathy, they were offering tools. They pointed me to a website, a sort of gray hat cybersecurity service that helps victims fight back. They offered software, techniques, and ways to unmask the anonymous. The site explained that they could generate a special custom tracking link for me. It would look like a normal web link, maybe a news article or an image link. If I could get the scammer to click on it just once, it would execute a script. It would capture his IP address, his approximate location, and, this was the incredible part, it could attempt to activate his device's camera and microphone, and even access his file directory. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot I had. I raced home. My heart was pounding, but this time it was with adrenaline, not fear. I logged onto the website, paid the small fee for the service, and followed the instructions. Within minutes, I had my weapon. A single innocuous-looking link. Now I just needed to lay the trap. I messaged him back. My hands were steady now. I texted the following: I'm trying to get the money. I'm at the bank, but my transaction for the Bitcoin exchange keeps getting this weird error message. He responded with, what error? Hurry up. The clock is ticking. I texted back saying, I don't know, it's some technical code. I took a screenshot. Can you look at it? Maybe you know what it means. This is the link to the image. And then I pasted the link. I sent it. And I waited. It was the longest minute of my life. Every second stretched into an eternity. I was thinking, he won't fall for it. He's too smart. He's a professional criminal. And then, bing. The dashboard on my laptop screen springs to life. Data starts populating fields, IP address, device type Android, and a map that is rapidly zeroing in on a location. He clicked it. The monster clicked the link. Information flooded my screen. His IP address pointed to a location not on an oil rig, not in America, but in a small city I don't have to mention. And then, the most surreal thing happened. A new window popped up on my dashboard. It said camera feed activated. The camera feed appears on my laptop screen. It's a shaky, real-time video from a phone's front-facing camera. It shows a young man, maybe in his early 20s, sitting in a dimly lit room. He looks nothing like the handsome, middle-aged Daniel. He's skinny, wearing a soccer jersey, and he's looking down at his phone with a greedy, impatient expression. There he was. My scammer. Not the charming, deep-voiced man from my imagination, but a kid. A boy sitting in a room with other boys, all of them hunched over their phones, likely doing the exact same thing to other women all over the world. I could see his face. His real face. And then I got access to his files. His photo gallery. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked on it. It was a treasure trove of criminality. There were folders filled with scripts, different stories for different types of victims. The oil rig engineer script. The soldier deployed overseas script. The doctor working in a war zone script. There were folders of stolen photos. Hundreds of them. The real Daniel, the developer from Texas, was just one of his many disguises. And then I found the folder that made me feel sick to my stomach. It was labeled Trophies. It contained the doctored nude photos of his victims. Dozens of them. My picture was in there. I started taking screenshots of everything. His location, his live camera feed, the file directories, the scripts, the photos. I saved it all. I had him. I had his face, his location, his crimes, all documented. With a deep, steadying breath, I picked up my phone and I called the authorities. I called my local police department and asked to be put through to someone in the cybercrime division. My voice didn't shake. I laid it all out. The romance scam, the money, the blackmail, and the evidence I now had on my laptop. The detective on the other end was silent for a moment, and then he just said, "Ma'am, you have no idea how significant this is." He told me they'd been tracking a large-scale syndicate operating out of that exact region for years, but they always hit a wall. The scammers were ghosts, using VPNs and anonymous platforms. They never had concrete, real-time evidence like this. My tracking link had given them the key. For the next 3 days, the scammer kept calling and texting. "Where is my money?" "I will send the picture now." I gave him excuses. "The bank transfer is still pending." "My internet is down." I kept him on the hook, feeding him just enough hope to keep him from pressing that button. He was desperate. I knew if he shared the nudes, he'd lose his leverage. He'd lose his chance at the money. So he waited. And then, on the fourth day, the calls and texts stopped. Silence. 2 weeks went by. It was the most peaceful 2 weeks I'd had in months. Then I got a call from the detective. He asked if I could come down to the station. When I arrived, he led me down a hallway. He stopped in front of a one-way mirror looking into an interrogation room. And sitting there, looking small and terrified under the harsh fluorescent lights, was the young man from the camera feed. The detective pointed. "Is that him?" And I just stared. And a word erupted from my lips, a name that felt like poison. "Daniel," I shouted, my voice echoing in the quiet hallway. "That's not Daniel. But that's him. That's the man who did this." The detective smiled. He told me that with the information I provided, they coordinated with Interpol and the scammer's country's authorities. They didn't just get my scammer. They raided the entire internet cafe. They arrested over a dozen members of the syndicate. My little tracking link had brought down a whole criminal enterprise. The story hit the news. The police department held a press conference and, to my surprise, they gave me a civilian commendation for bravery. They wanted my story to serve as a warning, but also as a story of empowerment. And that's when the final, most unexpected chapter of this story began. The real man whose pictures were stolen, the developer from Texas, saw his photo in one of the articles. He saw my picture too and read what I had gone through. He reached out to me. Not through a dating app, but through the police department, who passed on his message. He said he was so sorry for what had happened, that he and his family had been dealing with their photos being used in scams for years, and he was amazed that someone had finally fought back and won. He was in my city for business a few weeks later, and he asked if he could take me to dinner to thank me properly. I was hesitant, but I agreed. And we met. And he was just as kind and charming as his pictures suggested, but this time it was real. We talked for hours. We became friends. And fast forward a year, we're more than friends. I found love after all, but I had to go through hell and back to find it in the most unexpected way possible. So why am I telling you all of this? This long, crazy, painful story? Because I know there are others out there. Women and men who are lonely, who are looking for connection, and who are vulnerable. Please be careful. The world has changed. The tech these scammers use is sophisticated. The voice on that call? It could be an AI voice changer. That choppy FaceTime video? It could be a doctored, looped deepfake. The pictures and videos can all be stolen from an innocent person's social media. If you meet someone online and you start to feel a real connection, do your homework. Not in a creepy, stalkerish way, but be a detective for your own heart. Do a reverse image search on their photos. It takes 5 seconds. Ask for a live video call where you can ask them to do something specific, like wave their left hand or touch their nose. If they always have an excuse, that is a massive red flag. Never, ever, ever send money to someone you have not met in person, someone you do not know in the real world. No matter how tragic their story is. Your kindness is a virtue, but in the wrong hands, it's a weapon they will use against you. Avoid pouring your heart out to total strangers until you can verify they are who they say they are. My story had an insane, movie-like ending. Most don't. But I hope that by sharing it, I can prevent at least one other person from going through the pain that I did. You are not stupid for wanting love. You are not foolish for having a good heart. But you must protect that heart fiercely. All right, my therapy session is officially over. Thank you for listening to my ridiculously long story. If you made it this far, you're a champion. If this helped you, or if you just found it to be a wild ride, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. It helps the YouTube algorithm show this video to more people who might need to hear it. And hey, while you're down there, click subscribe. I promise my future content will be less emotionally devastating. Maybe I'll do a video on my favorite cookie recipes or something. And turn on that notification bell so you don't miss it. I'm told that's what the kids do. And seriously, share your experiences in the comments below. If you or someone you know has dealt with a scammer, let's talk about it. There is no shame. There is strength in sharing our stories. Let's make this a place where we can all learn and look out for each other. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.